This is the Water Quality Association podcast.
Keep in mind, when you're dealing with a private well, it is not a guaranteed source in any sense of the word. Wells can change. The water quality can change. The flow rate can change. So it is not etched in stone as to here's the equipment, you're all set for the next 20 years.
That's longtime WQA member and WQA online instructor Paul Friot talking about water treatment for private wells. And welcome to the podcast from the Water Quality Association, the leading voice of the residential, commercial, and industrial water treatment community. Find us at WQA.org. I'm Wes Bleed. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a show, and be sure to share it with someone on your team. And a reminder, you can watch our podcasts on YouTube. Private well owners face a unique set of water quality challenges, and for water treatment professionals, that creates an opportunity to provide real value through expertise and ongoing service. On this episode of the WQA podcast, we're joined by WQA Lifetime Membership Award recipient and instructor Paul Friot. Paul is a master water specialist, certified installer, certified water treatment representative, and certified service technician. We'll discuss private well systems, water testing, treatment, maintenance, and how dealers can grow their businesses by becoming trusted advisors to well owners. Plus, we'll have our WQA tip. It's all coming up on the Water Quality Association podcast. Paul, thanks for joining us. Nice to have you on the WQA podcast.
It's great to be here, Wes.
For those who are not familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your water treatment experience?
My background is I got into the industry when I was about 13 because my father bought a water treatment dealership and told both my brother and I that this is what you're going to do this summer. And neither of us enjoyed it at the time, but I decided to stick with it. That's about 50 years ago. So I've been in the industry for a few years. We were an independent dealership, dealt with softeners and filters and reverse osmosis. Almost all of our customers were on private wells. We had a few municipal customers, but 95 to 98% of our customers were on private wells. So we were treating a host of different issues. We sold the business about 6 years ago. I started a new business called Get Water Answers, where I strictly do consulting. I have no skin in the game. And I'm also an instructor for the Water Quality Association.
Right, and that makes you the perfect person to have on this podcast as we talk about well water, private wells, water treatment for those residents and customers who are on wells. So for those who don't work in private wells every day, how significant is the well water market in North America?
Well, approximately 10 to 15% of the U.S. citizens are on private wells at this point. So it is a significant market depending upon where you live. Generally speaking, it's going to be more rural areas where you find people on private wells where they do not have a municipal system.
Okay, and is there a difference in terms of how someone serves a customer on a private well versus someone who is on a municipal water supply?
Yes. I mean, there are generally differences. You will sometimes hear the term problem water used. And generally, when people talk about quote unquote problem water, they're talking about private well water. Because when you're dealing with a municipal system, for the most part, the municipality is going to raise the water quality to a certain level before they will use it and send it out into the distribution system to their customers. With a private well, it's a crapshoot. You drill the well and the quality is what it is. And sometimes it can be pretty extreme.
Right. So what should water treatment dealers understand about how a private well system works? And again, some of the differences between that and what they normally might do.
Yeah. Generally speaking, a private well will have a lower water pressure than a municipal supply. Not always, but generally speaking. In most cases, that pressure will fluctuate. Not always. There are now what are called constant pressure pumps that keep the pressure at a specific level all the time, but your average typical private well setup, the pressure will fluctuate within a 20-pound range, generally either from 30 to 50 psi, 40 to 60 psi, but it will fundamentally fluctuate to some degree and typically be lower than a municipal supply. So that's one key difference. Also, with a private well, unless you have a generator that's powering the well, when you lose electricity, you lose your water. With a municipal supply, in general, you do not. That's another difference.
All right. Are there some misconceptions that maybe homeowners have about their wells, and what would they be?
It's generally just a fundamental lack of knowledge. Most people, if they didn't grow up with a private well, have almost no awareness at all of how the water is pumped in from the well. If they have a pump, where the pump is located. Is the pump a submersible pump, which is literally submerged in the water down in the well? Is it what's called a jet pump, where the pump may be located either in the house or in some sort of a pit or a shed or something outdoors? But most people just have very little awareness of a private well at all.
Right.
And Wes, that they are fundamentally responsible for the quality of the water, maintaining the pumping system, and so forth.
And what are homeowners required to do, and where are there no requirements?
It really depends upon where you're located. So it's hard to make a blanket statement. Some states are heavily regulating different aspects of life, including private wells. Other states have very few regulations related to private wells. So it really depends upon where you are, what the requirements are. In some cases, you're required to test the water, for example, when you sell the home. The health department or the state may have some sort of a requirement related to that. In many cases, that is not true. If you are testing, what tests do you have to have performed? Sometimes people think it's this magical situation where, oh, I had my water tested. Well, it's like having blood work done when you're dealing with doctors. It isn't, did you get your blood tested? It's what parameters were checked. Same thing applies in this case.
Are there warning signs that homeowners overlook when it comes to a private well? And to go along with that, what kinds of things should a well owner be aware of?
So it makes sense to have the pumping system and the well inspected periodically. Question of how frequently do you need to have that done depends. The EPA recommends that you have the water quality tested annually for coliform bacteria and for nitrate. Okay. Most people, in my experience, they might test the well when they first purchase a home and they never test it again. In the real world, that's what frequently happens because you're caught up with other things. As far as the well itself and the pumping system, it makes sense to periodically have it inspected. Whether that should be done annually, it's a judgment call, but that would include things like checking the precharge, the air precharge in your pressure tank, checking the amp draw on the pump. Is the pump drawing too much amperage? Is there something wrong with the way it's pumping? Potentially, you would periodically consider doing what's called a flow test. Certainly when you first purchase a home, not only would I recommend checking the water quality in the well, but also how much per minute does the well produce. That's referred to as a flow test. And that's something that, in my experience, most people don't do, and it's kind of important.
To address what our listeners and viewers might be interested in knowing is, you've tested now. Once that's complete, how do you know, or how do you determine what kind of water treatment might be appropriate?
Sure. Depending upon what group or groups of contaminants you've decided to test. For example, are you looking at volatile organics? Is that of concern? Are you checking radionuclides? Do you have things like uranium or radium in the well? Really depends upon what package of tests you pick. Once you do determine that, then you want to look at it from the big picture. In other words, you don't want to piecemeal things, because generally there are trade-offs when you're recommending equipment. So you want to look at what are all the problems confronting us regarding the water quality, and what are the customer's goals? What do they want to achieve? What is of importance to them? Because it isn't always what I would pick as a priority. So it's really important to have an in-depth conversation with the customer to understand what do they want to achieve.
It certainly sounds like, from what you're talking about, there is a business opportunity here for dealers who might be in areas where well water is more prevalent, and that they would be in a position to help homeowners.
Yes, absolutely. And the way we approached it was we were in business to solve water quality problems versus being in business to sell equipment. Now, in the real world, when you're dealing with private wells, not every well needs equipment, but many do. So yes, it is an opportunity. However, generally speaking, it can be more challenging to solve problems when you're dealing with private wells. So it generally requires a higher level of technical expertise to tackle that versus municipal water. So I would encourage dealers who are looking at it, maybe they've been dealing with municipal water and they're deciding to branch out and deal with private wells, just sort of take it slowly and don't hesitate to call on your distributor, your OEM, to try and help you with some of the technical aspects of applying the equipment correctly. Because I've seen many situations where equipment was misapplied, well-meaning water treatment companies, but they didn't have the technical foundation to properly assess what was necessary.
Well, and are there other services that can be provided simply beyond installing the equipment in the first place?
Certainly, a service is the weak link in my experience. So if you are willing and able to provide services such as a yearly maintenance call is one possibility. If you have a reverse osmosis system, generally those need to be maintained annually, and it's generally not something that the average homeowner can do properly. If you are selling softeners, you could potentially offer a salt delivery service where you're delivering it periodically, you're dumping the bags in, you're checking the settings on the water softener to make sure they're correct. You're periodically retesting certain parameters, the easy ones, like, for example, the hardness or the pH or the iron level. It takes 5 minutes to run those tests, and maybe some of the settings on the equipment needs to change. Keep in mind, when you're dealing with a private well, it is not a guaranteed source in any sense of the word. Wells can change. The water quality can change. The flow rate can change. So it is not etched in stone as to here's the equipment, you're all set for the next 20 years.
And it really all comes back to how much knowledge that dealer has. And you touched on this earlier, the WQA education, for example, online courses such as what you teach, can often close the gap between where a dealer is in relation to their knowledge about well water and where they need to be, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the courses that WQA offers, and I'm one of 3 instructors, I'm the only one, but those courses offer a foundational level of knowledge. It isn't going to teach you everything you need to know. I mean, look, I've been doing this for 50 years. I don't know everything there is to know by a long shot, but this is all I've done basically 7 days a week for all of my adult life and beyond. And one of the other instructors, Peter Cartwright, he's been doing it longer than that. And he would, I think, say the same thing. There's always more to learn. One of the key things I would say to you is it's never boring. This is an industry that's a very interesting industry, and there's always more to learn.
Last thought here, Paul. Anything else that you would want our WQA members to be aware of when it comes to well water treatment?
If you are tackling health-related contaminants on a private well, just be cautious because there can be real liability involved. And so generally speaking, you want to proceed slowly. Think about, are you dealing with certified products? Hopefully they've been certified by WQA to an NSF ANSI standard, but just know where you stand ahead of time, because sometimes it can be better to walk away from a situation versus taking on something that could make you liable for something down the road.
Paul Friot, great to have you on the podcast, and really, really great to have you as part of our education team, and such a great resource for the Water Quality Association. Thank you so much.
Phil, thank you, Wes. I appreciate the time.
Our WQA tip, WQRF's Summer School Webinar Series is back. Join us this summer for our summer webinar series running June through August. Each session features expert insights, practical takeaways, and the latest trends in the water treatment industry. Whether you're looking for deepening your knowledge or just staying current, this series is the perfect way to learn, connect, and grow all summer long. Go to wqrf.org/webinars to learn more and register. And a big thank you to Calgon Carbon for sponsoring our summer school webinar series. Thanks for joining us for the Water Quality Association podcast. Learn more about water and water filtration at our consumer website, betterwatertoday.org. And learn more about professional certification, the Gold Seal Product Certification Program, and how you can become a member at WQA.org.